Morning booktube, welcome to It's Tony here from Locks to Reads. Welcome to December. Christmas is almost upon us again already. I thought I'd do a quick video today on my theoretical December TBR. Uh, Let me start with the books I have beside me. This is These are the books I have from the library mostly. There's a couple on the top that I have are books that I'm reading. Actually no, only one is a book that isn't from the library. I've been renewing these over and over again, and I need to get them read. So December's a good time to do it because I have more time to read in December. Especially as I'll be at my parents' for a chunk of it, and there I tend to do a lot of reading. This might not be all that I read in December or all I try and read, and it probably won't be what I read in December. But I think the deadline has to be these have to be read in December or returned to the library and taken out again another time. I'm going to talk through them very quickly, but I'll start with the one on top, which is the one that isn't from the library. If I don't throw it on the floor, that's Fictions by George Louis Borgia, or it's Jorge Louis Borgia. This is very famous short story collection. We're reading this as part of my reading group. I've read the introduction, the little thing in the beginning, and the first short story. It's interesting. The first short story reminded me oddly, as among many other things, a little bit of H.P. Lovecraft. Although I might not be the first person to say it, or I might be the first person to say it and be completely wrong. Not because of there's any existential horror about it, just the way he talks about the mixture, the sort of the creeping of a world into a world. But very interesting anyway so far. Looking forward to finishing that. Then next, first from the library. This is the only other fiction book on this pile so far. This is Han Kang's. Is it Greek lessons? Now, she won the Nobel Prize for Literature. Not read anything by her. This was one that came up quite a lot as a recommendation, so I should be reading this. I have started it. It's about a woman who can't talk, or can talk but occasionally can't talk, and her a fellow student or teacher. I haven't got very far, so I don't know yet. And it's about what happens between them, and why they have things in common that might not be. Anyway, I'm not going to read off the blurb on the back. I refuse to do it. So that's the fiction book. Next up, this is an old one. London Life in the 18th Century by Dorothy George. This is a very, very old book. It was published in 1925 originally. I got this out because I have a fascination with the history of London. I read the introduction. This seems to it's a sort of economic social history. I suspect a lot has happened in terms of research since this book was published, so it's possibly incredibly out of date in terms of its conclusions. But I'm sure there's going to be some useful information in there. So there's that. Next up is C.S. Lewis's The Four Loves. This is his meditation on the nature of love and Christianity. I haven't even started this one yet. I've been meaning to read it for ages, and it came up in a discussion about a book that I was reading somewhere else. So that's why that one's on the list. Then, Jacob Burckhardt's The Civilization of the Renaissance in Italy. This is a pioneering work of cultural and art history. It was published in it's a very, very old book. Published originally in 18 something. In the 19th century. It's basically about the civilization of Renaissance in Italy. I did start reading this a long time ago. Got quite far in it, and then lost my copy of the book, and then for various reasons never picked it up. So I'm looking forward to reading that. Material World by Ed Conway. This is about basically the key stuff that built our world and is going to change and is going to continue to build the world of the future. If I remember rightly, it's sand, salt. Actually, I'm going to read the back. Sand, salt, iron, copper, oil, and lithium. This was nominated for one of the book. I think you might have actually won one of the non-fiction book prizes. It's become to me highly recommended. So that's that. Then Adam Hochschild's Bury the Chains: The British Struggle to Abolish Slavery. This is obviously, subtitle gives it away. A non-fiction book about the British campaign to end slavery, and why it was and how it came about, who drove it, and how it ended up succeeding. I'd be interested to see how it sort of talks about both white and black people's contributions to this campaign. Adam Hochschild is I been recommended as a writer, so this is an interesting topic for me. Then two vaguely connected books. The Blazing World, a New History of Revolutionary England by Jonathan Healy. This goes actually doesn't just do the English Civil War. It goes up to what we used to be called the Glorious Revolution of 1688. It's history. I've read the introduction, so I look forward to reading the rest of this. I find the English Civil War fascinating. Have done since I did it at university. So that connected to that, I read an anthology of Cavalier poets in October, I think it was, and that made me want to read more about them. This is Reprobates: The Cavaliers of the English Civil War by John Stubbs. It's about Cavaliers. It starts before the Civil War, and it talks about them. A lot of them are. It's a lot of get my teeth together. This is I've read about 67 pages so far, and it's really fascinating. I find the personalities interesting, and the whole period, as I said, that whole Civil War period I find fascinating, since I did it at university. Next up, The Scourging Angel: The Black Death in the British Isles by Benedict Gummer. A nice upbeat little tome. This is about the plague. The original, I think it concentrates on the original 14th century one that's basically killed half of the population of Europe. I don't know why I picked this up. I saw it, and I think I've wanted to read something about this subject for years, and this was the one that I saw it in the library and thought, well, I'll sod it, I'll get that. I've read the introduction, and it sounds like an interesting book, so I'm looking forward to finishing that off. Next up, Emperor of Rome by Mary Beard. This is about the people who were emperor, what they did, what power they had, how they ruled. I like Mary Beard's writing. I've read a couple of her books before. I like the fact that she's very kind of open about the fact that a lot of what we think we know about the classical world isn't quite as certain as people like to think it is. I've read about 100 pages of this so far and found it really interesting. Occasionally I find her humorous side swipes a bit annoying, but mostly she writes very clearly on the subject, knows her stuff obviously, and I found that ever since I did Latin A levels, I found ancient Rome a fascinating subject. I recommend you watch the original I Claudius series if you haven't already, and the book by Robert Graves. but yeah, I'm really enjoying this one so far. And here we go. A subject for taste: culture in 18th century England. Um, Again, this was one I picked up because I had a sort of I've sort of gradually become very interested in the 17th century, and I don't know 18th century, sorry, and I don't know why. It just become a interest. This basically talks about the cultural trends in England at this period of time. It's divided. I've read the first chapter. It's divided by well, it's sort of the first chapter sort of talks about things generally, and then it goes to the crown, the aristocracy, then there's religion. I think then they do the middle class, then there's books and blah blah blah. Anyway, it's a general cultural history of 18th century England. I've read the first chapter and it's really fascinating. This is the origin. 18th century is when England becomes modern England fundamentally, and the cultural split in terms of class here is the cultural split we still have today. It's just people are less. There are less people in impressive looking wigs. And finally, The Rise of the Greeks by Michael Grant. Again, this is a book about the development of ancient Greek civilization. He split it. I think, if I remember rightly, he split it by region and city, which makes sense because ancient Greece isn't one culture. It's not one country like modern Greece. It's a series of city-states that are both where modern Greece is now, but scattered all around the Mediterranean, North Africa, Spain, Italy, down as far as Turkey. So it's not a one civilization. This is just a general history. Again, I picked this one up at the library. When I wander around the library, I never really have I'm usually not there with a particular objective in mind, and I just grab what I see that's most interesting. Somehow, this part has ended up being a huge part of non-fiction books, with one exception. And I so I sort of, I'm a bit of a dilettante when it comes to reading subjects. I don't have a one apart from I read a lot of World War One books. I read a reasonable amount of World War Two books. I've read a lot about Churchill, but I read a lot of just general non-fiction. So you might find if you follow this channel that it doesn't stick to one thing. Now that's a fair chunk of stuff to get through in a month. I hope there will probably be some fiction added to it. I have finished the Christmas Carol. My Christmas, I did that yesterday. My Christmases normally start the I have over the last sort of 3 or 4 years developed a pattern for the Christmas, and it starts with me listening to Tom Baker read A Christmas Carol, which I did yesterday. I love A Christmas Carol. It's my favourite. It's such a good story. I don't believe any rich person in the modern world would be affected by ghosts visiting in that way. I can't believe, for example, Elon Musk would have a moment's hesitation about what he's doing, even if he was visited by 600 ghosts telling him he was an idiot. But the fiction is glorious, and because it's a novella short story, Dickens has to be verbally less verbose than he can sometimes be, and I stylistically I find it very entertaining, and also I love Tom Baker and I love Tom Baker's reading of it. I have also listened to Hugh Grant read the same story, and it's good, but it's not quite as much fun as listening to Tom Baker do it. So that's where I am for December. What I'll end up reading, what I won't end up reading, I don't know. I should point out that I very rarely DNF a book. I sometimes put books down and come back to them, but I very rarely utterly DNF a book. It's usually because there's something about it that I just can't deal with. Sometimes I'll stop a book and come back to it, stop a book and come back to it, and then enjoy it. Like, it took me 3 goes to read Dune, which I eventually quite liked, but it took me a couple of shots at it. So I try and slog through everything. I don't know why. I know the sensible thing is to stop reading if you're not enjoying a book, but I kind of feel obliged that once I've started it, I should finish it. I think less so with library books because you know it's not, you haven't paid for it, so there's no, you're not wasting money. But yeah, that's my December reading plan. Part of it, the random bit. As I said, how many of them I'll actually read, I don't know. I will see where we are after a week, because I'm planning to try and make a dent in at least a good couple of these. Well, I'm planning to finish one. Planning to finish Greek lessons today if I can, and fictions in this week as well. At least, possibly more. And what I'll do is I'm going to. The plan is I'll do a weekly update, and I'll do individual reviews as and when I finish a book, and then maybe slot in some tags and stuff. But yeah, I'm waffling on now and trying to, because I can never think of a good way to end these videos. But thanks for your attention, and I will see you soon. Thank you very much, BookTube.